Ready Check Radio. What's up, Internet? It's time for the Relic Grind. Ready Check Radio's Final Fantasy XIV Square Enix podcast. Episode 37. Two-man show today. One of those being me, Mike Byrne. As always, thank you for joining us. If you're joining us live on twitch.tv/ReadyCheckRadio, we've got chat hanging by. I'm sure they're going to have some opinions on stuff we're going to talk about a little later. If you are watching on YouTube, on ReadyCheckRadio.com, or on Spotify, of course, head on over to that website, ReadyCheckRadio.com, upper right-hand corner. All the socials there. Click on them, follow, subscribe, turn on the notifications, recommend it to your friends, all that jazz. If you like what we do, it's the easiest way to support us and keep us going. Almost got to 100 views on last week's episode before showtime today. Almost. So I don't have to cook from the cookbook live. But we'll do it again for this show. If this one gets to 100, we'll still honor it. Because it was close. It was close. It was close. Almost there. It'll get to 100, but it didn't do it in time for this show. So, congrats to Mangoes in chat on some awesome final exam results. Very proud of you. Congratulations. Congratulations. Storming here a little bit, so I mean, it's going to be a little shorter of a show today. They're always on YouTube. They're always on YouTube. Ready Check Radio. Sub to RCR. Yes, yes. Yeah, so we'll see. Joining me to go over all this stuff today, Adam Lane, a.k.a. Kronos. How are you, sir?
I'm doing all right. I'm ready to talk about the subject, actually. I've been pretty rage-induced about it, to be honest. So Tark's not going to be here to, counteract that, I think.
Yeah, no Tark today. Tark will be back next week. He, unfortunately, sitting his ass at work today because other people need vacations. On that note, just a little programming note. We will have the Relic Grind next week as normal, Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern. We will not have the Relic Grind the following week. That following week, I will be out Thursday and Friday having my gallbladder removed. Oh. So that'll be fun. So no Relic Grind next week. We will have it next week, but the following week, 2 weeks from today, no show. And then we'll be back the week after as normal. So everybody gets a day off. Before we get to, what kind of has been lurking on the internet this week for Final Fantasy XIV, there are some other things I think we should cover first that are maybe a little more fun, too. And honestly, the topics, when we get to them, Kronos, we've given our opinions on these, but they were always in conjunction to other things.
Yeah,
it was always an afterthought. Oh, here's the topic. Here's what I think about that. So today we're really gonna narrow down on them in a minute here. But let's kick it off. There was I thought it was an incredibly awesome interview with main scenario writer Benry Oda over on 4Gamer. .net, and it is translated, so maybe a little rewording and stuff like that, but 4Gamer's usually pretty good about it, and they were pretty good on this one. And usually, Kronos, I don't know about you, but I have interviewed for MMOBomb.com, for GameBreaker. I've interviewed so many people in the industry that I really don't expect much out of interviews, even if another site does them, even if it's a big IGN interview or whatever. It's just they're always so PR laden. The questions are kind of lame. You want to ask hard questions, but then you also don't want to get kicked out of the room. So there's always this little balance. Read the interviews I send over for MMO Bomb. Half of them come back with no questions answered, with half the questions answered. And I just put in the post, hey, I asked these questions. They refused to answer them because I just don't give a rat's ass. But, yeah. This one, however, I thought was really interesting. So back in May, they solicited questions from readers, knowing that this interview was coming up. And then they just kind of took those, narrowed them down to 15, and through them. Now, there's a little bit of a danger when you do that, when you ask your community for questions. Because there are questions that, like, I would get that I would look at and I go, yeah, I understand why somebody wants to ask this, but I also know they're not going to answer it. Or it's just going to be some PR fluff. I thought, looking through these questions initially, I thought there was a nice balance of very interesting questions and some funny, interesting fluff, not PR bullshit fluff, across the entire interview, Kronos.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. There was like a couple things in there I didn't really know until you had sent this over and I read it, so I found that pretty interesting. But yeah, I mean, you're right. A lot of these things end up being that way, and that's why I kind of pick and choose where I look at my interviews, like as far as like when they happen, like like for Yoshi P as an example, it's like I kind of know when he's going to spill the beans at certain events, so like those are the ones I kind of pay attention to for the most part. But I've never been I've never been the person asking those questions, so I don't have that experience like you do. So
it is very interesting, and we're talking to the main scenario writer, right? So there's like a broad swath of stuff you could go after here. If you're a lore hound, you could dig into lore-specific questions. If you just want to talk about, what's it like being in that job, you have that. I do highly suggest you go check out the interview because obviously we're not going to go over all the questions that were asked here. But some of them I did think were interesting, and I want to bring them up and get your take on them here. So they kind of asked like the generic, what's important when you're creating a story? Whether it's the main scenario or job quests or like what is important for you when you do that. And he just says, number one is the audience. What is its purpose? What is the purpose of this story? And who's the audience for this story? That is like the be-all, end-all at the beginning. And he specifically goes into like the healer roles quests. Not just main story, but that type of stuff. And says those are targeted towards players who play as healers. Therefore, it's important to incorporate some form of healing aspect into the actual quest. When thinking about crafting, gathering Beast Tribe quests, we should take into consideration the characteristics of the Beast Tribe, as well as ensure that the story revolves around having the player craft and gather in the game. Written media, such as short stories and picture books, on the other hand, don't have these types of limitations. You can make it take place in regions that don't exist, where working in the game, you do have the confines of everything that is available to players in 14. And then talks about it, kind of his inspiration when he's doing it, which is basically anything he's got his hands on right then and there. Like, he talks about when they did Heaven's Word, A Song of Ice and Fire, the Game of Thrones books, the game Tactics Ogre, Let Us Cling Together. Those were things that he was messing with, reading, enjoying at the time, that were recommended by a friend, and they played into it. So not shy about maybe cherry picking a little bit from other mediums.
Everybody cherry picks, right? I mean, you could when you play through Heaven's Word, you can kind of feel it a little bit. It's definitely not as violent and bloody, and there's a little bit less certain things going on. But like overall, you can kind of feel that he took from like George R. R. Martin a bit there. As far as like I find it funny, like he talks about the quests and how like the classes need to be involved and stuff. And my counterpoint to that would be like, why are like the battle jobs gathering stuff too? I always find that kind of funny. Like It's like, hey, Dark Knight, go pick up some flowers. Yeah, cool. That's always what I wanted to do. Hey, White Mage, go get some grapes. Like, but
go do a little gathering with that big ass sword.
You got to have fetch quests, right? I mean, they exist. It's just I would probably poke it a little bit just to be funny. But yeah, I think it's overall pretty cool just to like kind of pick his brain over like how he comes up with some of that stuff.
This was a question that I didn't even realize I had until I read it, and I was like, yeah, I have that question too. And maybe this did the same thing for you. Why do the Archons have their tattoos in different places? Like they're the insignia. Like, why is it I read that and I was like, yeah, I did. Why is that? Why is that? Like Thancred's got his right on his mug. Yeah, and Louis Swa had it on the forehead, and others have it on their leg or on their torso. And so they said, why? Sometimes both sides of the neck or on the cheek or the forehead. Is there some type of ranking system or something that dictates where the mark goes? And Oda had this to say, he said, there are two designs for the Archon's crest, the official one and a simplified one. If you take a look at Monbreda, for example, the mark on her leg is the official crest, and the one on her neck is the simplified version of it. Each Archon can choose whether they would like to bear one or both, as well as where to put it. Seems like a bold choice for Urianger, I said Thancred, I meant Urianger, to have his right on his face, but perhaps what he really wanted was to have it on his forehead like his respected mentor, Louis Soir. So wherever the hell you want it. That's why.
It's interesting. Everybody chooses a different spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. But
just being unique with their own tattoos. Also, this may be more up your alley than mine, but I did think it was interesting. And this one's actually been a question for a long time, right? Like, why can summoners summon Phoenix? That shouldn't be, if you kind of just look at the whole story, that shouldn't really be possible. And I also wanted to know, is Tiamat upset now that we summon Bahamut? The questions were worded like this in case you need a little context on the whole Phoenix thing, if it's not something you've ever thought about. I can understand how the Warrior of Light can summon Bahamut, since they were at Cartno Flats during the 7th Umbral Calamity and came in contact with Bahamut's Aether. When it comes to Phoenix, however, they were teleported to the future just before Louis Soir transformed into Phoenix. Minor coil spoiler, I guess. How can the Warrior of Light call it forth even though they have not been around its Aether? What's the answer, Kronos?
I don't remember, to be honest. I don't really think about stuff like this for real. I mean, I read through it, but I honestly don't remember what he said. But
so you were story skipping this interview.
yeah. I do it from time to time, you know.
So the answer Oda gave on this was Louis Soir used Phoenix's power of rebirth to reconstruct the environs destroyed by Bahamut. This caused corrupted crystals to appear all over the renewed Eorzea. Doesn't the color look familiar? That's right, they're the same color as Phoenix. When Phoenix returned to Aether, said Aether was spread all over Eorzea and embedded within the corrupted crystals. The Warrior of Light, who passed from Cartno into a realm reborn, unknowingly came in contact with Phoenix's Aether as well. This is why all summons can call on Phoenix regardless, summoners can call on Phoenix regardless of whether they have completed the binding coil of Bahamut raids. And regarding Tiamat, she was extremely displeased that the Telefori were abusing Bahamut's powers. I would say she would not be very happy should you try and twist and misuse his power as well. Maybe a little foreboding take there.
It'd be kind of funny if she reacted in the dungeon, if you're a summoner. I've never really thought about those two things, to be honest, because for me, when I look at those things as a summoner, I'm just like, cool, Bahamut. Cool, Phoenix. And when they add the next one, I'm like, that's cool, Alexander, or whatever they add, you know.
Nice. I have a new summon.
Yeah, I don't really think about those from because I'd rather just it be like at first glance cool, and then maybe just think about the lore later, which I'm sure they do a little bit of that too, right? Because I'm sure whatever the next thing they decide to do, they're just gonna probably be like, that's really cool. Let's figure out how we can make the lore work, you know. But
if you've ever wanted to know more about things like how effective are the healers in Eorzea, not us player characters as healers, but healers NPC-wise. You know, you always see them treating people, but it's kind of like, well, why don't you just cast Cure, you know? Well, why are we doing this? There's rules for all of this. If you want to know about the Calamity's impact on the world, the differences between Diabolos and Diablo, if there are any in Final Fantasy XIV, highly recommend checking out this interview. Just wanted to spotlight a few of my favorite questions on there. 4gamer.net. That's the number 4gamer.net. Check it out. Great interview. Don't forget, I'm sure Kronos hasn't forgotten because there's a mount on the line.
It is in my tabs on my Chrome. I keep it there to remind myself to do it tomorrow.
The Moonfire Fair event does start tomorrow. There is a polar bear mount as well as other prizes for completing the event. But yeah, Kronos, I saw that and I was like, yeah, well, I know what he'll be doing Friday.
I was excited. Yeah. So the first one, I feel like that's had a mount in a minute. So
it really has. Like it's been even minions. It's been most of the minions have been repeat minions.
Yeah, and it's just been like glamour items for the most part.
Yeah,
I feel
glamour or tabletop. Lots of tabletop items for housing in most of the events lately. Have you taken a look at Twitter lately, though? We got some new art.
Oh, yeah, the twin art. Yeah, that's pretty dope.
So here is Alphino as a sage. Weapons and all. That is absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, he looks cool.
Absolutely gorgeous.
Alphino is definitely like the character I feel like with the biggest glow up, right? Like from like ARR to now.
Yeah.
I feel like he's
well, Alice already had hers. That's why.
Yeah.
Alice had hers back in Red Mage days, Red Mage launch days. Speaking of, we did get some updated art for Alice as well, seeing what she'll look like in Endwalker. I mean, these are just absolutely gorgeous shots. But that Alphino Sage shit, man.
Yeah, it looks sweet. I'm excited. 99 days, by the way. So, not that anybody's counting.
Is that what it is? 99?
Yep.
So we are in the double digits now.
Yeah, we have reached double digits.
I don't know if I have this kind of time. And I don't know if I did have this kind of time, if I would want to. This definitely seems like a Chronos type thing.
This is a little bit further than me too, to be honest.
Is it?
But I do stuff like this, so it's like not out of the realm, for sure.
Realm?
Yeah.
Talon Kirk, who goes by Reborn07 on Reddit and PlayStation Network, got their first trophy on Final Fantasy XIII for the PlayStation 3 back in 2010. A couple days ago this week, he unlocked the final trophy introduced in Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrades DLC, making him the only person in the world right now to have collected every PSN trophy from every Final Fantasy game that has a PSN trophy. Every single one. And for those of you that have played Realm Reborn on your PS4 or 3 and now moved to PS5, that includes the additional trophies that were added in there as well. Specifically, they do talk about these. Speaking to Kotaku about his trophy earning achievement, Reborn07 said that before the release of Final Fantasy XIV on the PlayStation 5 earlier this year, there were between 12 and 15 players with all of the Final Fantasy achievement for games in the North American region. Since the PlayStation 5 version was introduced, only 10 players have earned every achievement in the game. Reborn's closest competition, a gamer by the name of Dr. Taco, is currently 2 Final Fantasy XIV PS5 achievements away from joining him at the pinnacle. An 11-year journey to pick up all of these damn things, Chronos. Now, if they gave a mount, you would have been done already.
Well, all right, no. There are mounts in 14 that I do not have because of the, like... Although I will say today I was working on my pterodactyl mount, so I can't really talk because that one is awful.
You're breaking down. You're breaking down.
Yeah, it's bad. There are some that are like really, and then of course you have the unattainable ones, but that's a whole different ball game. But yeah, I definitely like achievement hunt and some stuff. And then the Final Fantasies I really like. I've gotten all of them. I don't know the extent of the 14 achievements on console. I only know what the achievements are in game, and I don't know if there's anybody that exists that has every 14 achievement in the game.
Like, in the achievement log is what you mean. Yeah,
because some of those are insane. I do know people that do hunt them, though. There was a guy that I did the Delube and Regine Savage with, and his goal is to get every achievement in the game. Because I remember everybody was arguing with him because he wanted to do 10 clears, and everybody else just wanted to do 5 for the title because 10 has an achievement with nothing. It gives you nothing but achievement points.
Yeah.
And so that was like a whole thing that he wanted to do 10. And
the problem is you got to move fast.
And you got to do a lot of stuff.
Because they just keep adding. They just keep coming.
Right. But he had done some of the really hard ones like that. Like he had both Palace of the Dead and Heaven on High stuff. Like he had done a lot. So I'd be interested. I'd never looked at his full achievement list. I don't know if you can see it on his lodestone or whatever. But that dude, I mean, there's not many people I feel like that have played this game more than me. 14, that is. And I think he's got me beat by a substantial amount. And
just in sheer time investment, you'd have to.
Yeah, and it's just like this guy, like I love Final Fantasy, but I'm sure this guy takes the cake from me
Yeah, I love Final Fantasy, and I do a little bit of see, like, even with like the PlayStation trophies or the Xbox, gamer score stuff and stuff like that. I'm never one of those like I gotta plat it. I think I only have like 4 or 5 platinum
I don't have a
trophies
lot
on
either.
PlayStation.
Yeah, I only do it for specific stuff. Like I did it for 7 Remake. I haven't done it yet for Integrate, but I did do it for the original 7 Remake, and I did it in like 3 or 4 days. But
yeah, mine is more or less like I'll play through something, and then when I feel like I'm done playing it, I'll look at what I have left, and I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll plat that.
Yep. I'm with you.
Or I'm like, nah,
Yeah.
I've enjoyed this enough. I'm done for now.
Yeah.
Like I platinumed, was it Shantae Half Genie Hero?
Okay.
great action platformer game if you've never played it on the PS4.
I know what Shantae is, but I never played the game.
Ni no Kuni 2, I platinumed that. Yeah. So it's always just like, yeah, sure, I'll finish those off.
Everybody has different goals. I remember people like I used to play on the Xbox, not the PlayStation.
Funny
3
you say that.
But yeah, we'll segue a little bit. But I remember people used to buy games just to plat, like an easy like plat. They would just like, I got to get my achievement points up. Let me buy this Terminator game that's terrible.
Yeah, I had a buddy that did that on Xbox, and then people on Steam do it all the time. All the time. Here's like a little $2 game with 15 achievements on it. Like, I don't care that much. But congratulations, 11 years in the making, just to, in 99 days, have more added. Yeah. If more aren't added in the interim from something else Final Fantasy related that we don't know, what it is. We'll see. You did mention that it all depends on how you play. And apparently that is not good enough for the internet.
Nothing's good enough. Man.
Nothing's good enough. Because today, or this week, it's kind of been getting out of... We've discussed this a little bit on the show, more in passing. Like, we would talk about Asmongold, right? And how he found himself reading the quests on stream when that wasn't really something that he would probably do if he wasn't streaming. He probably would have just blown through Final Fantasy XIV content to get to what is... And he was always open about what he's looking forward to the most is the raiding scene and stuff like that. But in that context, we kind of talked about like, yeah, hey, good on you. I'm glad you did it, and I'm glad you enjoyed it because the story is, for most people or for a lot of people, a huge part of why they play Final Fantasy XIV. Which is why I'm not really sure why this is all blowing up now. This game is, 9 years old. We're heading into 10 years old territory at this point. But story skipping and even boosting your character is now grounds, apparently, for some absolutely ridiculous hazing, Kronos. What the hell is going on?
So I would say it started probably it kind of started about a month ago, but it's like really picked up this past week.
It picked up steam this last week.
So there was a WoW player, apologies, I don't recall his name, who level boosted and was doing like Stormblood normal mode trial. It might even been an extreme or like a savage, I don't remember. And he didn't know how to play his job, and he was complaining and like blaming the healers, but it was kind of like overdone, like Twitch personalities, right? I mean, that's a thing. And people were like, well, you have no right to complain, right? Blah, blah, blah. You level skipped and you have no idea how to play your job. Like, lol, he's blaming the healers, which, yes, I mean, that's bad. But, like, they use that now to, like, just lump everybody that level boosts together. And, like, I feel like the most common things are like, oh, how can you story skip and level boost in this game with the best parts of the story? And you're an idiot. I can't believe you're level skipping to skip all the best parts of the game. And number one, that's the best part of the game to you. And a lot of people, right? Like, we love the story. I play a lot. Like, I play to do everything in this game. The rating is my number one, but I also really like the story. So I don't really skip. And personally, I wouldn't skip. But that doesn't mean that it's not okay. And it's also available, and Square Enix says it's okay for you to skip, so there's nothing wrong with it. And some people, like particularly the people coming over from WoW now, some high-end raiders, like all they want to do is experience the raid because they've heard that that's great in Final Fantasy also, and they might not give a crap about the story, and that's also okay. But it seems like that's like rubbing people the wrong way. And somehow people are now saying this is like pay to win, which is also just insane. They're not paying to get raid gear. They still have to kill the raid. You don't just boost to 70, get to 80, and then they're like, here you go, here's some Eden's Promise gear. It doesn't really work that way, and I don't know why people think it works that way. It TLDR, I guess what I'm saying right now, and I'm sure, I mean, we're going to continue like talking about this for a minute, but it's fine. Everybody has different goals, and everybody wants to do different things, and it's a massive ass game. Let people play it the way they want to play it.
It really
let
is. It really is. So, yeah, I think you're talking about Quinn, right?
I think that was it, yeah.
Yeah, who kind of got lambasted, and we mentioned it on a show, I'm pretty sure, about a month ago.
I think we did. Yeah.
Got lambasted by just saying, hey, I gave Final Fantasy a shot. I'm done. I'm not huge into the lore, blah, 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 blah. Things I enjoyed outside of the waifus, diversity of the world, the soundtrack, the community for the most part. And then kind of got jumped on Twitter because he did skip all the lore, really didn't take time to learn his character or the combat system, boosted the best class that he thought, confirmed previously announced biases. This is from somebody's Twitter replies. Complained and talked shit the entire time, but you gave it your best shot, though. So here's the thing. I gotta separate this because I believe if you're gonna be a streaming personality, okay, I'm not neither of us are anywhere near as big as Asmongold or anything like that, but we have viewers, right? And if one of them says, Mike, will you play this game? I'd really like to know your thoughts about it. And it is interesting enough to me after looking into it to say, you know what, I'm going to stream that. Yeah, sure. I don't know if this is going to be my kind of game. There are some things looking at it that I don't think I'm going to like. But yeah, there's enough here that, yeah, sure, we'll stream it for a week and we'll see what it's like. Maybe it's your favorite game or whatever. And we've had this happen. I've had people recommend games on here and on MMO Bomb to stream. There will come a point where if I don't do certain things in it, that I'm just going to say, you know what, it's not really fair for me to review this because I didn't give it the old college try. It so wasn't for me, Kronos, to the point where I can't even give it a review. I can't tell you if I like this game or hate it because there's just too much that I'm not enjoying about it, so I'm not going to play it anymore. But that doesn't mean it's a bad game. It could be a bad game, but it could just be it's not for me either. So Quinn's situation, I think, is a little different. When you do a boost and a skip, and you don't take that time to then say, hey, look, I'm jumping to whatever the game is. I'm jumping to 50. I'm jumping to 60. I'm jumping to 70. I'm jumping to 80. So I'm going to have to put in a little bit of time to learn my class that I probably wouldn't have had to if I would have just leveled because I would have learned it organically. When you don't put in that additional time, I really don't care what you have to say about the game's combat system or its class management because you didn't put in the time. We get level boost skips for different things at MMO Bomb all the time. And I'll tell you what, I personally don't like them.
That's totally fair. Yep.
I personally don't like them. Not that I'm saying they're a bad thing. I think they are a great thing for a company to make some extra money on and for somebody that doesn't have, Kronos, the time to invest that you and I that do. Or, hey, look, guys, Endwalker's coming up. I want to catch up to Adam and Mike because we're going to all raid together. Will you help me learn my class if I buy this skip? Yeah, that I think they're great. I personally don't like them, though, only because I feel like the time I have to spend to learn how to play the class or the character is offset by the amount of time that I could have just leveled and learned it organically. And that's just me personally. I feel very overwhelmed when I get a class that's level boosted and has, 48 of its 50 abilities.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you have to do a lot of learning yourself because you don't slowly get that given to you. I will counterpoint just a couple things, and I agree with pretty much everything you said. Number one, Square doesn't teach you how to play Final Fantasy XIV, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah. I'm speaking more in the abstract, generic boosts than 14 in particular because I absolutely agree with you. It is not terribly great. It teaches you how to function in your class.
Right. Yeah, it's not really when you get to level 80, right? Let's say you go from 1 to 80 right now, no level boost, no story boost, you enjoyed the story, and you're like, I'm level 80, I'm in game, let's go, right? Square and Final Fantasy, they have not prepared you for that. like it's in the game and you can do it, and it's definitely a cool thing to try for, and I love it. I love that content in the game, but they like mentor and all that stuff. That stuff sucks. I'm sorry. That is like a big part of the game. I feel like they should figure out, like the whole novice thing. Like they don't really teach you anything other than like tank should tank and healer should heal and DPS hit the boss. They don't really teach you your job. Like, as I've seen videos of tutorials from other MMOs that do a much better job at it. However, 14's really not, like, that's not their bread and butter, right? And so they don't have that content, and I hope that it changes later. Like more people start playing, they introduce that into the game, and I think that would be great. But right now, you have to use a lot of external resources to really get you ready to raid the right way if you really want to learn. Now, obviously, if you just want to go in and mash some buttons and hit some bosses, that's, more power to you. That's awesome, and I hope you have fun doing it. But I don't think Square really, I guess that all I'm saying is like Square doesn't really like help you get to the point where you are knowledgeable about your job, other than like, hey, these are buttons and I hit them. I mean, you get a feel for it because you're leveling, which is better than someone that boosted that they just all of a sudden, like, here's their hotbar, like you said, with 30 skills on it, and they don't know what any of them does. But and then the other thing too is like when someone's complaining and that's where they're coming from, just ignore it, man. Like I know it sucks, and that dude has a following, and he's probably going to get some people in there that have no idea what they're looking at, and they're just going to echo what he's saying, and that's trash. But you just got to let those people just do that, because you can't. There's always going to be those people, right? There's going to be those people that skip all the cutscenes, and then they're like, hey, the story sucks. Or they're never going to step foot in a raid, or they're going to raid one time, and they'll be like, raiding sucks. And it's just,
Yeah, and it's also, to something you said, it's also very different, right? We're talking about an MMORPG.
Yeah.
We're not talking about you went out and bought Final Fantasy XV, skipped the entire story, and said, this game sucks.
Mm-hmm.
Because then that's on you.
Yeah.
You're an idiot.
Yep.
It's a Final Fantasy game, a single-player RPG. You know the focus is going to be on the story, and if you weren't playing it for the story, yeah, you probably aren't going to enjoy the game. You might like aspects of it. Hey, I like the combat system, or I like this. But overall, it's not going to be enjoyable. When you put that onto an MMO, whether it's 14, World of Warcraft, whatever, particularly 14 for this, you're dead on. There are so many. Are you there for the story?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's okay if the answer is no.
Yeah.
It's totally fine if the answer is no. Are you there for the raiding? It's totally fine if the answer is no.
Yep.
I have friends that have never done a raid above the story difficulty. Above the normal difficulty for things like
totally fine.
Eden.
Yeah.
100% fine. Who cares? Are they enjoying it? Cool.
That's what matters. That's all that matters. Boom, done. That is the statement that matters. Are you enjoying the game the way you're playing it?
I'm going to be honest. I watch and read every main scenario cutscene and quest dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably about 50% on side stuff. As far as reading all of it, cutscenes I'll watch, but as far as reading quest text or dialogue that, isn't cutscene, but it's, they're standing around and stuff, probably about 50% for anything that's side quest related or Beast Tribe related or anything.
Like, let's use the Moonfire Fair as an example.
Yeah,
I read that, dude. Just give me my polar bear mountain.
Yeah, couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you any event text from events within the last 4 years. I can probably tell you from the first couple of years when I did read them because all the events were new. Mm-hmm. And if they're the same now, cool. Then I know what the text is. If they've changed it, I don't know. And a lot of them have had different quests over the years, so I'm assuming that the text would also be different. It's fine. If you want to buy boosts. I don't care. And if you want to buy boosts and still be bad at your class, but you and your friends are having a good time, great. I don't care. It doesn't impact me in any way, shape, or form.
Thank you.
Now, if you want to come and raid and Savage with me, and you don't know your class enough, I'm still okay with you, as long as you're willing to learn.
Mm-hmm.
As long as me and you can go talk about your rotation and your materia and go hit the target dummies for a little while and take a look at some stuff and send you some guides and have you watch them. I'm cool. if you're going to boost and then not learn your class and bitch about how you're getting owned in Savage Raids or you're holding us back in Savage Raids, no.
Yeah.
No, then we have a problem because now you are impacting my play and you're not being honest about why.
You're not going to be in my group and I'm going to ignore you.
Like, right.
You can play the game that way if that's how you want, but it's not going to be with me.
Yeah.
And then I will touch on like one more thing because I feel like we've pretty much said our piece at this point for the most part. In chat, they said for individual jobs, they don't teach you, but they do a really good job of teaching mechanic markers. That is very true.
Yeah, Evil's dead on in chat there.
You like, and in ARR, they weren't very good at it, but they have gotten extremely good at it now. And it's so good. That's why you see these like really high-end raiders are picking up stuff because you can get little tells and you kind of know like, this is a stack. Oh, this is a spread. So they do very good job of teaching you mechanically how to do a fight. My only point was they do not do a good job of teaching you how to play your job. That's my only point.
Yeah.
So.
And I think if you're there's a difference too. We're talking about players do whatever you want. If you're going to review the game or put forth a review type content, you can't half-ass it because you're going to get called out. And then when you turn around and try and make it the community that's being toxic to you, you just look like an asshole. At that point, you just look like an asshole. This kind of extends, though. I want to get your opinion on this too, because you get this same discussion about people that use ACT or people that use like CACBot, and and where do you fall on this one too? Like we've again another topic we've brushed across in various shows where we're like, yeah, if you want to use ACT just for your own DPS sake, that's fine. Go ahead. I don't have any problem with it. But we have a problem the same way Square Enix does with if you harass somebody with it. But there is kind of this same stigma of, oh, you're not using ACT, then you can't be in my Savage Raid. Oh, you're not using this stuff, then you can't do this or you can't do this. Like, there's all these fucking gatekeeping for really bizarre stuff.
You see a lot of stuff, and being like, I'm not the best raider, right? Like, I'm passable, right? I'm pretty good. But there are people that are much better than me, and I love watching them. I enjoy watching them and learning, and I try to get better every time I raid. I use ACT. I like to be able to track. That's the way I use myself to improve. I use FF logs. I try to use FF logs to just improve me personally and look at what other better players are doing that I am not doing, and then doing what they are doing to be better. There are people that use it in a bad way. You see stuff in Party Finder a lot where and this is their goals, right? Like, I mean, maybe that's they're trying to push, like, if they're going for world first, right? And they're like, gotta be 99s, right? That's on them. That's their thing. Just don't, you're not going to want to be in that group anyways, if that's not how you think. So just don't join it. But you do get toxic people that will shit on you for your DPS, and those people get banned typically. So I think ACT is whatever. I think CACBot for raiders is more of a hot button issue. So I don't know how much you are aware of CACBot, Mike.
Oh yeah,
are you like super aware of it? So do you know like some of the stuff that it can do?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is where it gets kind of weird, and I think in Ultimates it gets a bit of a stigma. Personally, I don't care. Clear the way you want to clear. I'm going to clear the way I want to clear because for me, it's about how I want to get to that clear and feel good about how I played myself. I don't give a crap who else clears. Like, because they had CACBot or whatever. I don't care. That's their world. And like, if you think that them using CACBot takes away from their clear, then, I mean, that's your opinion. I think clearing an ultimate, even with CACBot, is still pretty hard, to be honest. Yes, it's harder without it, but it's still pretty hard. But there is some weird stuff with CACBot where it'll call some things before you're able to see it. And I've seen this. And that's where it kind of gets kind of weird, and why it's an argument.
This is no different than Deadly Boss mods,
right?
In World of Warcraft for years, or things like that. And granted, World of Warcraft did have to step up at one point and peel back some of what Deadly Boss mods was allowed to touch in the API in the game, because it literally got to the point where it was auto-botting. Like you could basically have your characters do the fight.
And that exists too. People don't want to admit that exists, but that exists in 14.
It does.
Yeah.
And but Deadly Boss mods is still a thing. There's the other version. What is it? Big Wigs and Little Wigs is another popular version in World of Warcraft, and they will do the same thing too. You have countdowns of abilities that are going to happen in 9 seconds. you know, and then all of a sudden at 3, 2, 1, and it'll flash, you know, you dodge or, you know, whatever. So it's not like looking at something that, and granted, I am simplifying what CactBot can do just for the sake of, I really don't want to get into the weeds of the actual add-on itself, even though it's not technically an add-on, but you know what I mean, third-party program itself. I don't want to get caught in the weeds of the specific program. You don't look at somebody using deadly boss mods in World of Warcraft as cheating or being down or anything. Granted, CactBot can go a little further, and maybe we start losing that defense point at a certain juncture. But you know, again, I have a problem with gatekeeping in general.
I do too.
Whatever game it is, I hate Bless Unleashed. If you love it, good for you. Go play it, and I hope you have a fantastic time.
I think the issue becomes when you compare it to WoW is people in Final Fantasy, for some reason, they just don't deem it as acceptable. And so when they see that, they're just
because
like, oh.
I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that it isn't officially accepted by Square Enix.
Yeah, it is,
you know? If Square Enix opened up the API for add-ons, this wouldn't even be a conversation. The conversation would then become the other way. You can't be part of my group unless you're using that. Because we don't have time. And it does now already. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, but it would just be even more so. Like deadly boss mods or bigwigs or something, if you're rating at a heroic and certainly a mythic level, you're expected to just have that. Like it's a wait, you don't have it? Okay, hold on, guys. We're gonna wait while Kronos installs this. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, you absolutely don't need these things to raid. By the way, but there are people that want every advantage they can get, and that's on them. That's how they want to play. That's fine. Let them play too. Just let them play, man.
Yeah, stop gatekeeping.
Just let them play.
It's a fucking video game, people.
Yeah,
it's a video game.
You know, it's like do you go shit on people that use guides? Like, oh, you beat FF7 remake, but you use the guide. Terrible.
No, I only shit on you if you use the old play online strategy guides. then I'm gonna gatekeep a little bit, and I'm just gonna say, yeah, you can probably go. Speaking of play online and other Square Enix news, Final Fantasy XI, the We Are Vana'diel site, has been updated. There's actually been a few updates, but a new one yesterday that I wanted to bring to your attention. There is a second part of the interview with Yosuke Saito, sitting down with Matsui, talking about Final Fantasy XI, and he didn't work on it on Final Fantasy XI, but he's been director and executive officer of Square Enix for a long time, and was producer on a bunch of different titles. Currently, he's working on Babylon's Fall, which we'll see soon. But I like that. Check this out, because they got into this conversation about how they don't think there's just going to ever be any type of experience that would exceed Final Fantasy XI anymore. And if you didn't play Final Fantasy XI, you probably go, okay, whatever, big guy. But if you read through the interview and you even remotely played, even casually for a little while played Final Fantasy XI, they do in this section of the interview talk about maybe we shouldn't have been as party-based as we were back then. And now it's very different. It's a very different game. But, you know, you really couldn't do much after level 16 or so without a party. And maybe that was a mistake on our part. But they talk about some of those opportunities, and then they talk about some of the great stuff that I'll always remember, like being scared to go in a zone. That was literally Final Fantasy XI was the last game where I was like, oh shit, I hope I'm able to sneak through here. Cast Invis and cast Sneak on my red mage and try and get through this zone. Because if I die, I'm going to take a 10% experience penalty, and it's going to be a long walk to get back here again. And oh my God, I shouldn't be here, but I'm going to try and sneak through here. Like, you just don't have that type of experience, or the type of experience with King Behemoth spawning and dozens of people ready to take King Behemoth down. Sandy to Juno. Evil, oh my God, you pegged it right there. Sandy to Juno. Particularly after you got through Kronstadt Highlands and you were coming down through into Juno from there. Ugh. Because I started in Sandy, so I was going the other direction towards Juno. Or when King Behemoth spawns and there's dozens of people there trying to take him down, and he meteors the place. And not only do those people die, but anybody that thought it would be a good idea to sit there and kind of watch this really cool big ass fight, yeah, they get smoked too. Like, those types of experiences just don't exist in MMOs anymore, even Final Fantasy XIV. And so while it may make a ha-ha headline if you didn't play it, even if you just played casually, go read it. It's a great interview, and it's hard to disagree with them on, hey, maybe it wasn't the best experience in some places, and we could have made it better. But there just isn't going to be an MMO that does this type of thing. I legitimately, Kronos, remember being afraid. Like, standing up, playing, trying to make it through a zone that I knew I had no right being in. You just don't see that type of stuff anymore.
I think back then, and it's not, they're kind of like trying to like say maybe they shouldn't do that. I mean, back then, I think what they were trying to do was make a Final Fantasy game that happened to be an MMO.
Oh yeah, no doubt, no doubt.
I think they did that. I don't enjoy it, right? Because I don't have the nostalgia. It's hard for me to go back and play it now.
Yeah.
But I think they succeeded because everything that I hear from the players that do love it, they say that's what it is. And I think with 14, it's an MMO that is a Final Fantasy. If that makes sense. It's like the reverse.
Yeah.
And I think they have a couple little nods to things that you're saying, but they're not the same, right? Like, I think you can get the experience you're talking about in Palace of the Dead if you do it solo, where you're like scared for your life because you're like, oh, if I die, I just wasted 10 hours of my time. This really sucks. But it's not the same as like walking through an area and seeing other people also in the same area. And like Odin exists in 14, but now no one does Odin anymore with like the King Behemoth thing you say. And if that was relevant, like that's probably not something that you can recreate.
And they talk about hunting NMs and stuff, which you guys that actually did Eureka, you have a little bit of a flavor of what we went through with Final Fantasy XI. And it's great. It's great. If you're a Final Fantasy XI fan, go keep checking the site. There is more since the last time we talked about it. I don't want to bring it up every show because I know I'm the only one that's like squee about it. So
you're allowed to be passionate about something that we're not passionate about. That's totally fine.
You want to know what I'm pissed about, and I think we're both going to be passionate about this one. Chat, if you play Final Fantasy, the trading card game, I think you're going to be pissed too. A new Square Enix game leaked onto the PlayStation Network this past weekend. Okay, it happened on the Asian stores, the Asian PlayStation stores. And it's a game called Voice of the Cards, The Isle of Dragon Roars. Now, they trademarked both of those things earlier this year, Voice of Cards and The Isle of Dragon Roars, but they didn't say anything about them officially. We brought them up in like Forspoken and all the other stuff that they were trademarking at the time before we knew Endwalker was the name. We took a look at all of that stuff. Here's the thing. We don't know what this game is yet. But Whole Milk, it doesn't look like it's going to be Final Fantasy TCG. But the artwork, there's just one little, the little like almost CD cover art that they put on the PSN store. It has 3 characters. Oh no, the stream disconnected. Oh, no. Okay. All right, we're back. There's storms in the area. I told you this might happen, so I'm going to have to chop the episode and render it. So it probably won't be on YouTube until tomorrow now. Anyway, the art we see for Voice of the Cards, the Isle of Dragon Roars, just shows 3 like generic fantasy characters on cards, but they're just generic cards too. And here's what Game Rant has to say about it. With such sparse information regarding Voice of Cards, fans have begun speculating what this title may in fact be. Based on the game's name and the icon artwork, there's a likelihood that this is a card game featuring deck-building components like Hearthstone. Considering the popularity of the genre, it would make sense for Square Enix to finally jump in on the action. There are also other rumors suggesting that this is in fact a small side project of Yoko Taro's, the director of the Nier franchise that he's been hinting at for some time. If it is a deck builder, it's curious of Square Enix not to just make a title based on or within the Final Fantasy universe. Many titles themselves have featured card-based minigames, like Final Fantasy VIII's Triple Triad, as well as an actual line of trading cards based on Final Fantasy VII Remake. I don't know who to be more upset at. Square Enix for still not actually doing a Final Fantasy TCG digital game, or Game Rant for not actually saying they already have a TCG. Like, you didn't need to go into Triple Triad and this trading cards on the Final Fantasy VII remake. Why not make one in the Final Fantasy universe? Because they fucking do!
It's the age-old thing, right? I mean, if you've been in the community long enough, I don't really play much anymore, but I was there. The thing that always comes back is Final Fantasy's got a card game, for real, and it still bugs me to this day. And I understand why you're furious, because it upsets me, and I don't know who to blame either, because I blame Square a lot for not promoting the game. And I've beaten that dead horse.
If
you can
we
go
get
look at Twitter posts,
Kronos, if we get a card game from Square Enix and it isn't the TCG digitally, I am going to just go ape shit.
Yeah.
Like, there is zero reason. I was one of the biggest proponents of, way back when, when I actually started playing, so this would be around almost Opus 6, in between 5 and 6. I would say, you know what? I understand why they're not doing it yet. They're not doing it yet because it's a very small game, and if you launch physically and digitally, you always run the risk of fracturing your already tiny audience.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to play digitally, I'm just going to play physically, and a very small overlap that will do both. So you want them to buy the card, so you say, hey, we're not going to do a physical or a digital copy of the game right away. Okay, I get that. We're now 4 years into this game. It's having stock issues. That's how much you can't, they can't make the stock enough to supply with the demand. And I know we talked about this as far as being merchandise in its categories. Yeah. It is very, very small in the bottom line. But when you can't keep up with the stock, I thought COVID was the perfect opportunity for them to launch digitally. I could not think of a better time for them to have done so.
The funny thing is I don't even think it has anything to do with how low on the totem pole it is, because I do think it's like semi-successful, because every card game known to man has blown up in the last year and a half. And I think they just don't care. They see the return they're getting, and they're okay with that return. And I feel like that's how they feel. And
I would be fine with that if we weren't then getting another card game digitally.
Yeah. I feel your pain. I really do. I think it sucks.
Because that shows, hey, we actually do want a piece of that Hearthstone digital card pie.
Because it sucks. And this is the thing I always harken back to when I have this conversation with other people. The card game is so fucking good.
Yeah, it is.
It's so good. The reason I stopped playing was not because the card game was bad.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go into that on here, but that is not the reason I stopped playing. That card game is amazing. And the fact that they don't care is what makes it so much worse.
Yeah. Evil, what a great point, too. Why do twice the work as well? Why develop a physical card game that is as popular as you expected it to be? It's no Magic the Gathering or Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm not saying it's anywhere near that. It's not even close. But it's doing exactly what Square expected it to do, maybe a little bit better. And then say, hey, well, let's make a totally different one, too. But just take the rules you already have and put them on software. Come on.
Yeah. The funny thing is you even have people that would be willing to help you do it.
Yeah.
That's the crazy thing, too. But, that's...
We'll
you
see.
Can't do anything about it. You can't...
This definitely isn't FFTCG. It definitely is not.
And I feel like it's probably going to be a digital card game. Probably some mobile thing would be my guess, but... Yeah,
I'm going to scream. I'm going to literally scream.
Yeah.
Hey, Square Enix is looking for your opinions on some Dragon Quest stuff. There's like a 30-question survey that they're running right now that they would like your feedback on. The first few questions are all generally, your demographics, your age group, and how much do you know the franchise. But then they do get into some specific questions, and they've said that the survey is going to shape Dragon's Quest's future. So if you're a fan of the franchise, I already took the survey. I don't know if you did, Kronos.
I am not. I'm not a big Dragon Quest fan.
Yeah, I know. I already took the survey. So if you're interested, just pull it on up, Dragon Quest survey. I was spending a little time on Steam charts this week, found out that, hey, Marvel's Avengers has more players than Outriders right now. And it only took months and months and months, and Outriders basically being a single-player offline game, and Marvel Avengers getting an expansion in like a week or so. Yeah, finally passed Outriders. So I got to ask this one question. Was it a mistake not to make Outriders a live service like Destiny or something like that? Instead of making it this single-player experience that they would like to expand and make expansions for, but we don't actually know when and if those projects will happen? Should they have maybe gone the Destiny route, or?
I'll tell you from a personal standpoint, I wouldn't have bought it if it had been a live service game. And I actually bought it based on y'all's recommendation. So first off, I probably wasn't going to buy it anyways. So that, so my opinion's kind of weird. And then based on y'all and having people to play with, I bought the game. I really enjoyed the game. I don't think I would have, even if you had recommended it to me, if I heard the word live service, I probably would have been like, you guys have fun, I'm out.
But you'll buy an expansion if they put one out.
I would buy an expansion because to me, I can play. So I like to play fast, right? I do a lot of, I set a goal and I do those goals typically. I did that with Outriders. And when you do a live service game, like I have goals in 14, I pay monthly for that, but those goals always just keep going. And I feel like I can only really do that with one game. So if I'm trying to play another live service game and I'm trying to set those goals for me as a player, it's really hard for me to do that with multiple games at once. With Outriders, because it was just what it was, I could buy it and then just play it and then be done when I wanted to be done, instead of having this like continuous thing. That's just how I am as a player.
No, here's the thing. I'm with you on it. Like I'm okay with live service games. Not generally thrilled with them, but I'm more okay with them than you are.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan, but I'm willing to give them a shot if it looks interesting. This one, I think I still agree with you. I'm glad they didn't make it a live service. I recognize that they probably knew that means 5 to 6 months down the road, if we don't have plans for DLC or expansions, we're probably not going to have much of a player base anymore. It did well. It surprised Square, that's for sure, in their finances. I'm just worried that by the time they do get an expansion around, it'll be too late. Like, it'll be so far removed from the original Outriders. Because if they aren't working on one right now already, then they're a year and a half to 2 years away from a game that will then be almost 3 years old, a single-player experience at that time. And I think you're getting a little too far away. It's not Final Fantasy, where if it takes 2 years or it takes 7 years, you're going to buy the next Final Fantasy. This isn't that.
If it's Outriders 2, though, would you be okay with that? Like, if it's not DLC, if it's like they're making Outriders 2, but it's like 2.5 years, 3 years away?
I would be, yeah. But again, I played the original, and you played the original. I don't know. I don't know if it does as well.
Yeah.
I think your sales targets then become, can we do just as well as we did with the first one? Not
That's
can
fair.
we do better than we did with the first one?
Yeah.
Because you're facing an uphill battle to reclaim your player base that has already stopped playing it because they beat it. Not because it was shitty, but because they're done.
Yep.
And there's a new Tomb Raider anniversary site out if you're a Tomb Raider fan. We are still waiting for Tomb Raider news for the 25th anniversary. Hopefully we will get some soon. The site is actually kind of neat in that they keep moving forward through time chronologically. Right now they're talking about 2006 Tomb Raider Legend, and there's all kinds of blogs and stuff. And then 2008's release will come up next, all the way through 2018. I'm thinking, it might make sense, right, if at the end of the timeline they then announce something, because they have teased that they have announcements, but they've also said no new games, or none that they were ready to announce. So we'll see. On that note, I think we should take Tomb Raider into Love It or Leave It. Let's do it. Love It or Leave It is the segment of the show we close with every week, where I give you something Square Enix related. Could be a game, a feature in a game, a press release, really anything that I can even tangentially get related to Square Enix. I have the ability to put it here, and I ask you and the hosts, do you love it, want more of it, or leave it, toss it aside? And today, since we're talking right at the tail end there about Tomb Raider and Lara herself, I need to ask you, Kronos, the newer Tomb Raider games, the kind of reimagined Lara Croft and her name is Lara. It's not Laura, you idiots. Sorry. Learn how to read. The newer ones, the very not hypersexualized polygonal triangle boobies, Lara. Little more real looking, if you will. Love those games or leave those games. And actually, I don't even know if you're a Tomb Raider fan in general. So we'll learn something about you here.
I'm really not. You don't like the edges though, the old edges.
The old points.
But no, I was never really super big on the old ones. I played them because people talked about them.
Yeah.
And so, I actually have never purchased any of the new ones.
I guess that's a leave it right there.
It's a leave it from me. So I've had friends recommend it for me, and they do look pretty cool. But I don't know. Those games typically don't draw me in very much. I have played games like that I do enjoy, so I'm not saying I would definitely not enjoy it. Tomb Raider just isn't very high on my list, personally. That's all.
I'm going to go with love it, but I have reservations. I really enjoyed them. However, they also did feel an awful Uncharted to me. Yeah, and it's hard to be, a Tomb Raider game and not look like Uncharted, because Uncharted was kind of the next logical step for the Tomb Raider games back in the day, right? To become these huge set piece, moments and things like that. And so I hope we'll get something taking it in a slightly different direction. Some of the characters in the games besides Lara, the newer ones, have been a little weird too, so I could give or take them. But conceptually, top to bottom, if I got to love it and keep it or leave it, toss it aside, I'm going to love it. Give me some more of those and just hope they move in a different direction too going forward. Chat, don't go anywhere after the show. We'll go dark for about 15 seconds. It won't be storm-related this time because I'll be shutting down. And we're going to go live with Miss Faye Death. How are you, Faye?
Yeah, I'm well. How about you guys?
It's Lara.
It is Lara.
Lara.
Get it right. Read.
Lara. Lara. Q in chat, as someone whose first name is Laura and not Lara, can confirm. Thank you. What are you streaming tonight? Is it Tomb Raider? Are you playing Tomb Raider?
I wish. I feel like now I should, but there is a
we really should coordinate this stuff.
We really
We're
should.
so professional.
I need to read the show notes is what needs to happen.
We're so professional.
I'll do better. Super professional. But there is a patch, and I'm still chasing some caps, so I think we're back to the Wastelands.
Oh.
76.
76. Fallout 76. You actually like that. It was not one for me.
Do.
It was not one for me.
I had fun with it. It is a lot glitchier.
And you know what? Prior to everything I've said in this episode, you should feel bad for liking that game. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. If you like the game, you like the game. I don't care.
I'm easy. I like B-rate horror films. I'm easy to please.
I like bad horror movies too. You like 76. Wow, okay. I didn't even know that. Hey. Well, chat, hang tight. Miss Faye Death will be up on Fallout 76 in just a moment. We'll be back, of course, next Thursday with an episode of The Relic Grind, 7 p.m. Eastern, here on twitch.tv/ReadyCheckRadio. Hope you'll join us live. And if not, check it out on the site down below there, Spotify, YouTube, whatever. Show next week, not the week after. Until next week, though, Kronos, where can everybody find you, sir?
Yeah, same as always. The old Twitter, the old complaining grounds.
Complaining grounds.
Yeah, I spend some time on there, typically complaining. So, yeah, just there.
I'm Mike Byrne. You can follow me personally right there in Magic Man, but more important, Magic Man 1. But more importantly, follow at RC Radio, RAIDEO, on Twitter, so you know every time we go live with one of our podcasts or any time of our volunteer streamers go live. So I love them all very much. Thank you so much. Stay safe, gang. We'll see you on the server.